The U.S. inching closer to action in Syria, apparently. Secretary of State John Kerry and President Obama both spoke yesterday on the issue. Watch.
Some cite the risk of doing things, but we need to ask, what is the risk of doing nothing?
I have not made a final decision about various actions that might be taken. I have had my military and our team look at a wide range of options. We have consulted with allies. We've consulted with Congress.
He's consulted, but he has not won their approval. Will the president ultimately go it alone without the support of Congress? Joining us now is Republican Congressman Louie Gohmert of Texas. Congressman, thanks a lot for joining us.
It's great to be with you.
What at this stage, as of the last day of August 2013, do you believe would be the point, the objective of hitting Syria?
Well, there's no good point because you've got al-Qaeda-based rebels, with due respect to a senator who says otherwise. He was wrong about Libya, too. And then you've got Hezbollah-backed Assad, Iran-backed, Russia-backed. You've got all these entangling alliances, kind of like before World War I. There is no good purpose. And what this president needs to understand is life is not like a box of chocolate where it's all good, you get something new. It's more like eating a jar of jalapenos. What you do today can bite you in the rear tomorrow, and he doesn't know exactly what could be the results.
So just to be clear, our enemies are fighting each other, and we're jumping in the middle of it?
In the middle of it, yeah. It makes no sense. And then when you have Parliament, well, you were interviewing Dennis Kucinich last night.
Yes.
Believe it or not, as left-wing as Dennis is, he was always an honest guy. He was a dear friend. But Dennis pointed out, well, if the Prime Minister of England has listened to the will of the Parliament, why shouldn't the U.S. President listen to the will of Congress? He doesn't have the UN behind him. They made that clear yesterday. Doesn't have England, our best ally. He doesn't have the American people are like 80% against him on this.
For sure.
You got Republicans and Democrats together on this. This is not a good idea. And this, you know, at least going into Iraq, they had invaded an allied country, or Saddam had. They had obviously used chemical weapons. But for this president to say, well, we're just going to go in limited and narrow. Tucker, if this was somebody in the government, say in the CIA or NSA, that leaked this, hey, we're only going to do something limited and narrow, you'd have them up on charges. You just told the enemy, we're going to have some limited and narrow, we're not going to send in boots in the ground. Then what is the point?
This is actually one of the most confusing foreign policy interludes I've ever seen in 20 years of...
It's because there is no policy behind it.
So what would the president need to say to convince you?
Well, we'd have to see evidence. And that's another thing. John Kerry and the president both use the words high confidence, and they think it's unlikely that the rebels use the chemical weapons. Are you kidding me, Tucker? As a judge, I've looked men in the eyes and told them that they were going to be put to death. I would not do that unless the evidence were beyond any reasonable doubt.
Yes.
And now they're saying, yeah, it's high confidence, so we're going to launch missiles and kill a bunch of people. We don't even know for sure who we're going to kill. That's outrageous. We don't do that in America.
So if the president brought this to the Congress for approval, what would the vote look like, do you think?
I think it'd be like Parliament. I don't think he'd have support to do this.
So what is Congress going to do about that? I mean, as far as I understand it, the president is allowed to act without congressional approval if the United States faces an imminent danger.
Imminent danger.
Right.
And it's been very clear our national security is not at risk, just like Bob Gates, Secretary Gates said it was not in Libya. It's even worse here.
So the president is just flouting Congress's authority, its oversight role. He's acting contemptuously. What are you all going to do about it?
Well, the problem is in the past we haven't done anything about it. I've talked to people in prior decades that were in Congress that, hey, it didn't matter whether it was a Republican or Democrat in the White House or who was in the majority. If a president exceeded his authority, there'd be a quiet trip by bipartisan leaders down Pennsylvania, met with him and explained, you've usurped our power.
Yes.
We're going to start defunding everything you care about unless you back off and abide by the Constitution. And our leaders have not had enough backbone to do that yet. Until they do, he's going to keep flouting the Constitution.
Such a good point. They could head over there tomorrow and say, you know, let me here's a reality check, Mr. Constitutional Law Professor. We're a separate but co-equal branch.
Well, and that's another thing. I think that this should also generate a class action lawsuit by those who had him for constitutional law demanding their money back. they ought to get their money back. They didn't get a good professor.
If you've got a phone, you've got a lawyer. Louie Gohmert, Congressman from Texas. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Doug.